So we'll just do a kind of a group by group round of introductions here, just so we know who's on the call, and we'll go with the Capstone team last, since you guys will jump into your presentation. So from Microsoft Fargo, so for those who don't know me, my name's Dave Frosley. I am the primary contact for the Capstone team. I am an architect on the finance organization in Fargo, and it looks like we have John and Matt who've been working the project. You guys want to do a quick introduction?
Yep, sure. I'm John Walker. I've been at Microsoft for a little over a year now. I graduated from NDSU in 2016. Grew up in a ag background, so I have a lot of interest in the ag tech type of work. So this is a very interesting project to be involved in.
Hi, I'm Matt Schumacher, engineer at Microsoft, as Dave mentioned as well. I'll have been here 4 years in June. I have a bit of ag in my family background as well, so ag tech is an area I'm really interested in too.
And Brett, you want to do an intro?
Sure. I'm Brett Iwan. I'm an engineering lead on the finance team and application frameworks as well. I work closely with John and Matt. I am also an NDSU grad, but not as recent as those two. It was actually 2004. And I've been at Microsoft ever since, and I was an intern even at Microsoft. So looking forward to seeing the project.
I'm also an NDSU grad, and I'm not going to acknowledge any dates. So. All right, and then also with the FarmBeats team, there's a few names I don't know here, but we'll start with Stacy, and maybe Stacy, you can help navigate through the others that might be on the call.
Hi, my name's Stacy Wood. I'm part of the Azure Global team, and I work for Ranveer, specifically supporting FarmBeats from a program management perspective. And I work with several different universities that want to use FarmBeats or advance in digital agriculture generally, just trying to make sure they have the tools they need and if they want to connect up to FarmBeats. And I'm not sure, I don't see other folks. Oh, we do have Parag. Parag's also on our team. And
yeah. Hi, I'm Parag. I'm a dev on the FarmBeats team. I do development on the cloud and edge, and I also take some deployments.
And Parag has been involved with the NDSU FarmBeats initiative for quite some time. So.
And then it looks like we also have Zarina.
It looked like Serena just left, Stacy.
Oh, okay. And then that's Peter.
Jerry. Jerry too.
Hello, I'm Jerry Neal. I've been on the project for 2 years now. Started the same time as Parag, and we started working with FarmBeats back when it was with Microsoft Research. As a matter of fact, I worked on the version for FarmBeats Research, and it's evolved since then. So.
Okay. And Peter?
Yeah, I'm Peter Olsen. I'm a trained mathematician that did speech recognition for 15 years and then turned into someone that did ML and computer vision for ag.
Cool. And then, yeah, you mentioned one other, Stacy, but she does not appear to have come back.
Yeah, she may rejoin. She's been on part of the FarmBeats team since very early on as well, working with radio technology and a lot of other pieces.
Okay. And then we have, I think, just Jason and Kim from other parts of NDSU. Kim, do you want to start, and then Jason?
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. This is Kim Owen. I'm a program manager in IT at NDSU. Had the pleasure of working with both Microsoft folks and the Precision Ag folks to get forward with all.
This is Jason Heidi. I'm the Enterprise Systems Manager at NDSU, involved with NDSU's side of Azure and I've worked with a number of the folks on the call here today, getting Azure set up to handle FarmBeats.
Okay, I think I've got everybody but the Capstone team. Did I miss anybody? All right, well then I'll turn it over to the Capstone team for introductions and to walk through their presentation.
Cool. I'm Jack Morris. I'm senior at NDSU in the Capstone program. And yeah, this is very exciting for me. It's the first time working with all of this different Microsoft technology. It was pretty fun.
I'm Matthew Brock, and I am also a senior at NDSU on the Capstone team as well.
Hi, I'm Henry Brewster. I'm also a senior at NDSU, and I've also been working on the Microsoft team. I've mostly been working on the back end kind of stuff.
I think Zach is here. Might be muted. I'm not sure.
Zach, yeah.
Hello.
Yep.
Hello.
I hear you.
I'm Zach Miller, and I'm also a senior at NDSU. First time working with Power BI and the Teams system.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to try and share this PowerPoint with you guys. So bear with me while this happens. Here's screen one. All right, are you seeing this?
Mm-hmm.
All right, now for some reason I gotta switch displays. All right, is it full screen for you guys?
Yes.
Awesome. So this is the FarmBeats Accelerator, the capstone project for this semester.
All right, so I'm going to do a quick recap of what we presented in midterm to give like a kickstart to this presentation. So, what is FarmBeats? FarmBeats is a Microsoft platform that really focuses on the like the data aspect of farming, and it consists of sensors, drones, cameras, and the Azure cloud. And the general goal is to improve yields, lower costs, reduce the environmental impacts of farming, and just to help benefit farming overall. And then our goals for the semester. So we had really clear and defined goals. The first was to just create Power BI reports that displayed sensor data. Then to create a web application that made use of embedded reports that researchers and students could use to help in their research. And then to also document the entire process to help aid any future development on the project. So the deliverables for the semester was to have a working web API, to create Power BI reports, to create a web application with the embedded Power BI reports, and to develop and fully flesh out documentation on the project. So what we've accomplished. In Sprint 1, we got all of the accounts and really like technical stuff taken care of. And we also had a lot of discussion with Microsoft and the Precision Ag team to get all of our requirements well defined and to help give us or to help clarify the goals for the project. For Sprint 2, we completed the web API with the research preview, and we went through a bunch of Power BI report designs. We got a lot of really good feedback in Sprint 2 from both Microsoft and the Precision Ag team, so we really were able to refine our Power BI reports. And as for Sprint 3, here we started shifting the web API from the research to the public preview, as the public preview was released right after midterm. So we had to make a lot of changes there. And we also integrated the API data with Power BI. So our Power BI reports, we're now using data that we got from our web API. In Sprint 4, we created the web application that has the Power BI reports embedded into it. We continued shifting the API over to the public preview. We finalized our specification documentation for our development. And one of the really nice things is we added drill through functionality to our Power BI reports. So you don't have to manually swap between tabs in the Power BI reports, and you could drill through directly to sections that you want. And as for what's left, we still have some finishing up to do with the public preview web API. It turned out to be a lot more work than we had originally anticipated. We still need to add functionality to a coordinate button. We originally wanted a little button you could press that would take your coordinates, and you would enter in a sensor name, and you could manually like update the coordinates for a sensor. But we need to wait on that until the web API is completely finished. And we still need to create a short demo video for the NDSU website. And now for the web API, I'll turn it over to Henry to talk a little bit more about that.
All right, so for the web API, I'll start off, there was two of them. We started off with the research preview, and then we moved on to the public preview. So for the research preview, this was back in the beginning of the semester. We had to start with learning about C# web APIs. I'd never worked with C# web APIs before, so I'd only worked with Java. So it took a few weeks to go through Visual Studio and learn how to do the web APIs in C#. And after some experimenting, we got all of that worked out. Originally, I thought the database was going to be a SQL database, so I created a fake SQL database, hit that, and then had it working in between the two. Then I learned that all of the data was stored on Azure storage accounts, so I had to learn how to do the new queries with Azure storage accounts instead of the SQL database. Also, since Azure storage accounts are being phased out and Cosmos DB is the new thing that they're trying to push for table storage, a lot of the new documentation was in Cosmos DB, so I thought that all of the data we would need to access through a Cosmos DB instead of an Azure storage account. And then it took a few weeks to get all of that working, so that way we were querying the right table instead of a new Cosmos DB table. Next slide, please. This is just some of the research preview data from the table. The public preview uses the same data as the research preview. It just hits the tables from their web API and then takes that data and imports it. I just wanted to show a background of what it would look like on the table side of things. Go to the next slide for me, please. This is what the output data looks like. It's just a bunch of JSON objects with ID, longitude, latitude, temperature, light, air temp, that kind of thing. The research preview was just those values you see up there, and it's slightly changed with the public preview, but it's basically the same thing, just a few added variables. Go to the next slide for me, please. Some of the services I had for the research preview was the two main important ones were the get all and the update location. So for Power BI, it is much easier for us to just take all of the data and import into it, and then sort it from the Power BI side of things, rather than to take individual sensors and import it to Power BI. But we also had a sensor and an individual farm method calls. The update location for the research preview, it by default doesn't include coordinate data. So we created a new table for sensor locations so that way we could query it and keep track of where the sensors are located. But with the public preview now, that is actually stored on the web API side of things. So you want to go to the next slide for me, please? So now I'm going to talk a bit about the public preview. So sometime around midterm, we switched it over to the public preview. The first few weeks we were trying to figure out how to query the FarmBeats web API, how it works, all of the documentation for that kind of thing. I then moved on to trying to query the database through Postman. I did direct HTTP requests, so I did all the get methods, all the post methods, trying to understand how to query the FarmBeats web API and then get that to work. And then after I tried to import that into the C# version of my web API, it didn't work because of the way access tokens work. Is you need to be able to log into a web page, and I couldn't do that directly from my web API. So we switched over to OpenID, which allows us to sign in and then get an access token so we can make all of our GET and POST requests. Next slide, please. So just on the bottom there, you can see examples of the FarmBeats web API. This is the Swagger documentation. On the left, you see all of the different possible method calls. And on the right, you see the example of telemetry, which is the post request that we need to make to get our data. You post to the telemetry with the sensor ID and then whatever the dates that you want to get, as well as the type of data you want. And then it'll return two objects. It'll return a list of all the times and a list of all the data. And so what we do for our web API is we just combine the times and the data into sensor, basically sensor lines, which includes the sensor ID and then the line of all of the data from that time period. If you want to go to the next slide. In our getAll method, that's what our getAll method does. And then our update location, the sensors now store on the FarmBeats web API the longitude and latitude. So the update location just takes an access token and then sends updates to the longitude and latitude for the button. And that would be for our magic button that converts or adds a longitude and latitude to the sensor. Go to the next slide. So the authentication, like I talked about a bit about earlier, is I was doing OAuth 2.0. In the left, you can see what OAuth 2.0 is. It's basically you just have a client, and then you have a three-way handshake. So you first request the user to log in. Once they've logged in, you get a code back, and then you request the server for access, and then you get a token back, and then for that token, you can then get your data. And then after I couldn't get that to work with the C# requests, the mentors recommended OpenID, so we moved towards an OpenID system, which we're still working on right now. We got through the login page and the access token is working, but some of the backend stuff isn't quite working yet, and so we're trying to get through that before we finish all up. And after that, I will pass on to, I believe Jack is next with Power BI.
All right, so what is Power BI if you're not aware? It's analytics software by Microsoft and extremely useful for business data visualization or any data visualization, really. It's helpful to find trends. It just lays everything else out in like a nice, easy to read manner. And then the cool thing about it, which is why we're using it, is that it can be embedded into web pages and web apps very easily. The design we have is we have a main page that's a sensor map, and this will just have nodes for each sensor that kind of show up like a dot that you could click on. That's why we needed the coordinate information so that it would show up well on a map. And then from these dots, you can click on them, view each sensor's information, and drill through to other pages that we have. And our drill through reports, we have 3 of them: the gauge view, the line chart view, and the heat maps. All of these different reports can be filtered by time as well, and the time is consistent throughout each page. And we'll show this more during the demo. And then this is just kind of a mobile view. Since we can't demo a phone, this is kind of just a little short video showing how it looks like on a phone. Instead of it's basically just been optimized for vertical scrolling, as you can see from this video here. And then these layouts will automatically be used when a mobile device is detected. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Matt here.
All right, so now we have the embedded Power BI report. So we created a simple web page which contains the actual report itself. It is a single web page, as with drill throughs, there really isn't a need to have multiple web pages. And there's also a page to input, the latitude and longitude to update sensors coordinates. I was originally looking into using geolocation. However, I saw that there were some issues with browser security where it wouldn't work. So I wanted to wait until we had this hosted to ensure that using geolocation would work for our magic button. And now think it's the demo.
All right, so we're going to do a live demo. I'm going to hand this over to Matt. He's going to share his screen. This is a local copy that we have, but just so you know, we can take this local copy, upload it to Azure, and just host it there, and it'll work. So if the Precision Ag team wanted to do that at any time, they could. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, if I can. All right.
All right, is this visible to everyone?
It's visible for me, yeah.
Okay. So this is the general layout of our web page. So as you can see, the Power BI report is embedded in the web page, and it has all the functionality that the Power BI report that we demoed in the midterm does. So if you hover over a sensor, it'll show you a quick overview of information. So it'll show you its coordinates and the various other sensor details. And then as for drill throughs, if you right click, there's an option for drill through. So you can go right to any of these pages. So if we wanted to go to the sensor charts, you'd click that. And then it would show you information for this sensor here. So you could swap between the different information. And if we go back, you just click the back button to go back, and then you go into another sensor. So if you wanted to look at the gauges for this one, you just click that. And then like Jack was talking about earlier, you can also sort it by time interval. So if you wanted to look just at 2019, you could click this and you'd see that it would update to that. Or if you wanted to look at month, you could look at November specifically. Our test data, we only have data for November and April. So there's those. And this time will also carry over to the various other parts of the report. So we are looking at November here on the for the sensor gauges. And if we went back and we drill through to the sensor chart, it would still show up as November. So that that time carries over across the different parts of the report. And we also have heat maps as well. Since there's only one sensor, we only have individual sensors. There's only so much like heat map data that we have. So that is what that looks like.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add here that the reason we're in Africa is because we just put in some random latitude and longitude test values, and it just happened to show up in Africa. So if we have actual sensor data from Fargo, it would show up in Fargo. It's just, so don't worry about that part.
I wanted to ask you really quick. I know, Matthew, we had trouble getting this simulator data in. How did you get the data, end up getting the data into FarmBeats for your accelerator to the show?
So the November data was old data that was in the research preview. And then I believe the April data was, we actually had a sensor set up in someone's apartment or dorm.
Yes.
And so we had like actual data to run off of there, but we really wanted to use the data simulator just to get extra volume or an extra like amount to actually simulate a farm instead of having just a few like sensors.
Yeah, that would be cool. This looks fantastic though. It looks really, really good.
Thank you. Thank you. And then the last thing to cover for this is the coordinate section. So like we said, ideally, I'd like to use geolocation so that you could just enter the sensor name and click the button, and it would automatically update that sensor's like latitude and longitude based on the browser's current location. But we also need to wait for the API to be finished so I can hit the API and actually push the like latitude, longitude, and sensor name up to Azure itself. And then, unless I'm forgetting anything, I'll pass this back to Jack to display the rest of the PowerPoint.
All right. Why? All right. I'm gonna have to go back to my slide here. Hold on. There we go. All All right, so the postmortem, I'm going to hand it over to Zach to talk about kind of the wrap up.
All right, everyone can still hear me. So overall issues is that the FarmBeats didn't come out publicly until about the end of March. This caused our API development to kind of get held up. And then the data simulation was unsuccessful due to issues with Azure. Slide. Just some of our thoughts on the Microsoft tools and platforms we were able to use. Power BI was really helpful. Really no negatives there. Very great for visualization. As for Visual Studio, that was very compatible. Great templates. As of right now, though, we had a lot of package errors using Visual Studio. And then Azure, we had some account issues, and then a lot of confusing documentation that was in there. And then FarmBeats, it had a great web API. It was simple and easy. It was a little hard to work with the database scheme. And we can go next slide. Just some reflections. Even with the COVID-19 going on, I feel like we were all still able to call this Capstone a success. The Power BI reports look great. And then our web API can be easily hosted on Azure at any time, like what Jack said. And then in the future development, I feel like any team could pick up where we left off, just using all the documentation we have. Slide.
Well, that's kind of the wrap up. Now, if you guys have any questions, we're all ears. Right. Guess I'll stop sharing my screen here unless anyone wants to see the demo again.
Actually, Jack, go back to the slide with the pros and cons. Would be one place for us to reflect on that just a little bit. Since we have a good quorum from the FarmBeats team here, it'd be maybe good to expand a little bit on that section, because that's still in preview. This is the time for us to hear feedback on what's going on, what's good and what's bad with that. So maybe I know, Henry, you did a lot of work with this API and trying to figure out how to get access to the data and stuff. Maybe you could just add a little bit more context to the bullet points there, and encourage the FarmBeats team to follow up with some specific questions around that.
Yeah, so to talk about the database schema, a lot of the issues were a lot of the functionalities we wanted, like the location and that kind of thing, and also the tables didn't include what the sensors were. So it was just sensor channel 0 through 13, I think. So a lot of times it was guesswork on what sensor we were working with and what we were trying to do. I get that from the installation point of view. We don't know what's on the boxes, but a lot of the issues with our research preview was that it wasn't mapped on correctly. So like we would have data for a box and we followed like the instructions we had, but all of the data would be wrong because we were using the wrong sensors. A lot of this got solved in the public preview though, because after we started using your web API, it's all mapped on there with, I think there was some script or something that just maps it onto whatever it is based on which sensor model it is. So a lot of that got solved once we switched over to the public preview, which I really appreciated, because that was the big issue with the research preview. Was I would get the data, I would transform the data in a way that I thought was what it was supposed to be, and then it would just end up not working. So I think a lot of that got solved with the public preview, since like that all got solved with scripts and that kind of thing. But from when the research preview was still out, that was a big problem we had. Otherwise, I've no complaints about the public preview stuff so far. Most of it's just been my personal issues trying to get the authentication to work. That's nothing to do with you guys. So I was just saying that from like a back-end point of view, when I was looking at the database schema, I was having troubles like comprehending it and working with it from the research preview side of things.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Henry, and I guess the team generally, I'm interested to look through your documentation. Did you include anywhere in your documentation the specific technical issues or solutions that you found, or the tools that you used and ended up abandoning? If not, is that something that you could document even at a high level and send over?
Yeah, we're still working on finalizing all our documentation, but we'll definitely have sections in there on what issues we ran into and what we used to overcome them.
That would be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions?
Is there any intention to take what you've done here and continue on with another team after you've graduated, or what are your plans for the product?
I have to hand over to Dave for that one.
Yeah, so we're going to have some conversations with the Precision Ag team. I see John Nowitzki joined the call here a little bit late. And the next Capstone opportunity is next year, January through May. So it's certainly a possibility that we build on this for that next project. I mean, this is the type of projects I like to do for the Capstone, but just because it uses Microsoft technology. It helps other parts of NDSU. It helps our greater community, which has a heavy ag focus. But it doesn't require students to get deep into the development tools we might use internally or things like that if they're going to do an internal project. So I really like the project, but I think the key thing is to collaborate with Precision Ag and figure out how we move it forward, how we'd get some ownership, maybe some resources from sponsored by the Precision Ag team to help move it forward.
This is John.